The fires continue to rage in California. Maxine Waters, on a much less important note, continues to flap her jaw. And the fires continue to rage inside of the Catholic Church regarding the pedophile scandal. And some sad and surprising news out of Baltimore, where the Catholic Bishops of America are meeting and had planned on dealing with the sex abuse crisis. All that and more on today's program. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance. Welcome to the program, friend. We just ask that you continue to pray for the victims and the families that are in harm's way in California. As of this taping, there are nearly 30 people dead, but there are 200 people missing because of these fires that are out of control. A lot of people dying in their cars as they try and escape, and then a wall of fire just sweeps through. It's absolutely horrifying. And sadly, I mentioned Maxine Waters in the opening. I watched her today on AM Joy, MSNBC, and it's embarrassing. She cannot pass up a moment to hit President Trump and to just flap her jaw. And I pity America because of her being in charge of the banking committee at the U.S. House of Representatives, because that's what it looks like it's going to happen. And we're going to come back to that as the days and the weeks unfold. We just got back from Washington, D.C. We were there to hold a demonstration in front of the papal embassy, basically. It's where the papal nuncio lives. It's also the Vatican embassy in Washington, D.C. And we were there to hopefully get in and meet with somebody. No one would answer the door. No one would even answer the call. They did, however, ask for the Secret Service to come, which was kind of funny. So the Secret Service of the United States is responsible for embassies of foreign governments. And so while we did not get to meet with anyone from the Vatican embassy, we did get to meet with the Secret Service. But our message to the Pope was very simple. Number one, to show his remorse, his personal remorse, to make amends personally, because a lot of this crisis has happened under his watch and, according to the Vigano letter, with his knowledge. And there are multiple sources, not just Archbishop Vigano, but there are multiple sources who are coming forward and disclosing that Pope Francis knew about Cardinal McCarrick, knew about other bishops in Chile, perhaps in Honduras, and rather than remove them, allowed them to remain in positions of power. Worse yet, with McCarrick, he put McCarrick, after Pope Benedict had removed McCarrick, he put McCarrick in higher positions of authority, determining who would become United States bishops. So you had a known pedophile, a known homosexual predator, somebody who was sexually abusing and seducing grown men that were in seminary. And the Pope put him in a position to determine who would become American bishops. The USCCB, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, was going to deal with that right now. They're meeting right now in Baltimore. And the evening, just before they began, the Pope sent a letter, the Vatican sent a letter asking the United States bishops to not deal with this sexual crisis, but to wait till February. So I smell a rat. It doesn't pass the smell test. I could be wrong. It could be that the Pope wants some kind of unified world response and that they're going to try and hammer something out in February. But really, how hard can this be? Think about it with me. Pedophilia is a crime. It's not just a sin, it's a crime. Homosexual behavior is a crime against God. It is a perversion. It is an abomination. It's a mortal sin, according to Catholic theology. In the scriptures, it's one of the 4 sins that cries out to God for punishment. Think of Sodom and Gomorrah, okay? How hard can this be? The issue is that the Pope doesn't want to remove bishops who have been involved in covering up the pedophile scandal or involved in covering up the homosexual scandal. That is far more what this is about. I've got to take a break. Please forgive me for focusing on this if you're not interested, but you need to know that this is really critical for all of Christianity in the whole wide world. And we're going to talk about President Trump, what's coming with Nancy Pelosi, with Mueller, all of this stuff. We are in a fight for our nation's soul, friends. We're in a fight for our nation's soul, and we're losing. We're losing. I'll be right back. Warrior guitars. Without question, the best guitar I've ever played, heard, or seen is a Warrior. The owner of Warrior, Jay Dran, has an incredible testimony of redemption and healing. God gave him the vision to start Warrior Guitars and a passion to make the best guitars in the world. They only make about 120 guitars a year, each one by hand. Maybe one of them could be yours, or a once-in-a-lifetime gift for someone you love.
The one thing that I can tell you is this is the most finely crafted guitar I have ever held. I've played a lot of guitars, I own a lot of guitars, and although the quality is exceptional on all of them, this is by far the most finely crafted instrument I own or have ever played. And I'm glad I own it.
Contact my friends at Warrior Guitar. Tell them Randall Terry sent you. Welcome back, friend. To get back on track, when we were in Washington, D.C., we asked for 2 things. Number 1, that the Pope show his personal remorse by removing all bishops in America that have a connection to Cardinal McCarrick, to homosexual cover-ups, and to pedophile cover-ups, or who are known homosexuals. All right, inside of the Catholic community, the Pope has referred to it as a homosexual mafia. It's also called the Lavender Mafia. And it's a plague inside of the church. There's some people that believe that it goes back 2 generations to when the communists were deliberately presenting priests for ordination who had false baptismal documents, and they let them into seminaries. One lady who was, I think her name was Hildebrand, who was a communist who became Catholic, says that there were 1,200 Catholic priests who were admitted into seminary with false baptismal documents who were full-blown atheist communists just to undermine the Catholic Church. But I digress, okay? How hard can this be? There are known homosexual bishops. There are known bishops who are covering up homosexual scandals, like Cardinal Wuerl in Washington, D.C. He's not a good man. He's an evildoer, all right? He issued a pro-abortion statement when he was in Washington, D.C. I personally confronted him to his face, this far away, okay? I was polite, but I nevertheless told him that it was a disaster. We are seeing treachery, open cowardice. We're seeing a betrayal of biblical principle. How hard can this be? We don't need another special commission. We have the Word of God. The church has its canons. They know what to do. It's that the Pope doesn't want to do it because we don't know how high up the scandal goes. And according to a lot of people, it's going to implicate the Pope himself. So, our statement to the Pope was, make amends. Show your repentance. Show your sorrow. And remove these bishops. Even if the Pope is implicated. Peter was denied Christ with cursing and swearing, okay? And yet Jesus still made him the first pastor of the church. Jesus still said to him in John 21, feed my sheep. Beg your pardon. So I just drove back, for you wondering why I'm having this congestion problem. I drove 1,000 miles yesterday to make it from DC back to here so that we could do the show. The other thing that we asked for and that we are continuing to ask for is for Cardinal Raymond Burke to be made the Archbishop of Washington, D.C. For those of you who follow Catholic news, you know that he is a very devout, intelligent, brilliant man. He loves Jesus and is committed to the teachings of the scriptures. He also has been the loudest voice to publicly say that no one who supports the murder of babies can receive communion. Okay? I had the privilege of interviewing him about 10 years ago in Rome, and he created a firestorm because he said that the bishops in America who were allowing Roman Catholic Democrat, it wasn't even about Democrat, just Roman Catholic politicians who supported the murder of babies by abortion, by allowing them to receive communion, they were committing a sacrilege. They had the blood of babies on their hands while they would ask for the body and blood of Christ. This is sacrilege. This is an offense against God of the highest order. And Cardinal Burke had the courage to say it. So what did Pope Francis do when he became Pope? He removed Cardinal Burke from the two most important positions that he was holding, entrusted to him by Pope Benedict. And again, for those of you who are not Catholic, you think, oh, what does this have to do with me? No, it has everything to do with all Christians, because whether any of us like it or not, whether any Protestant likes it or not, when people think of the church, they often think of the Catholic Church. And if the Catholic Church stumbles in an area of such grave morality, something so serious as abuse of children, of the killing of children by abortion, homosexual behavior, giving communion to baby killers, if the Catholic Church falters in this, it impacts all of us. And it gives permission to other denominations to commit acts of cowardice and treachery. When I was in Bible school, Protestant Bible school, they said, look, whether we like it or not, the Catholic Church is the big brother. They're the big brother. And when they set an example that's a bad one, it impacts all of Christianity. So our message to Pope Francis was and is, show your remorse by getting rid of treacherous, evil-doing bishops. And number two, put in either Raymond Burke in Washington, D.C., or someone like him. An orthodox, God-fearing, Christ-loving bishop. Not another one of these treacherous, deceiving members of the Lavender Mafia, like Cardinal Wuerl was. He was a part of the Lavender Mafia, make no mistake. Make no mistake. So let me take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the bad example and how it, and not just the bad example of the Catholic Church, but what's going on in the Protestant Church. Please, Christ, help us. Please, Lord Jesus, help us. Don't go away. Have Muslim terrorists hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam? Or is there more to the story? The answer lies in the life of one man, Muhammad, the founder of Islam. Muslim terrorists see themselves inside a 1,400-year-old story, a narrative that focuses on specific events in the life of Muhammad. We are going to look at Muhammad's life using their most sacred literature. We will look at Muhammad at the Battle of Badr. We'll see him deal with those who mock him. We'll see the times when he used deception. We'll witness Muhammad's anti-Semitism. And yes, we will discuss Muhammad and his teachings concerning sex, slavery, and jihad. Friend, if you want to understand Islamic terrorism, get this series today. Who did Jesus say was the greatest man ever born of a woman? John the Baptist, right? John the Baptist identified Christ. John the Baptist baptized Christ. But how did John the Baptist lose his life? He would stand and he would cry out, Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife while your brother yet lives. Just quoting the law of God. Now, hold on to that picture, and I'm going to come full circle to you, to our evangelical churches and the example that we're not setting, okay? MSNBC is camped out with one of their teams in Florida as we're seeing the Democrats try and steal an election. There's just full-blown voter fraud, criminal acts going on in Florida right now, maybe in Georgia, okay, where they're trying to steal elections. Governor Scott is going to be the next U.S. Senator. But Governor Nelson and the Democrats are trying to say, oh, look, they just magically found 30, 40, 50,000 votes. It's absurd. And the woman who's in charge of this county, Broward County, has been implicated and brought to task by multiple judges and commissions over the years. All right, this is corruption and criminal activity of the highest order. I digress. There are some God-fearing, Trump-loving people that are standing nearby the MSNBC team. And they're screaming at the top of their lungs, fake news. Trump, Trump, Trump. And they're screaming at MSNBC, fake news. Emphasis on screaming. Emphasis on raising their voice loudly. All right? I want to ask you a question. If you were in a setting, a political setting, and someone started screaming at the top of their lungs, it's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife, screaming at the top of their lungs, would you be embarrassed? Would you tell them to be quiet? That's what John the Baptist did. And Jesus said he was the greatest one that ever was born of a woman. Are you hearing me? Something is so radically wrong in the Christian community that the heroes of the scriptures, Jeremiah the prophet, the heroes of the scriptures, Elijah confronting the prophets of Baal, confronting Ahab and Jezebel. The heroes of the scriptures are an embarrassment to us, or actually they would be an embarrassment to us if they were here today. And we would tell them, don't say that. Stop. If Jesus was here and started throwing tables around and looking at the religious leaders saying, you brood of vipers, full of dead men's bones, you're full of all manner of filth and uncleanness, some of us would probably grab Jesus and say, Jesus, stop. We're trying to be Christian. There's a joke in there for you, okay? So the problem we have right now is that we want to be nicer than Christ, and we don't want to fight fire with legitimate fire. Now, there are things that the evildoers of today are doing that we cannot and should not do because they're immoral, all right? But there are things that we can do. Can we raise our voice? Yes. Can we yell? Yes. John the Baptist yelled. The prophets in the Bible yelled. They raised their voice. Jesus threw tables around. I don't think when Jesus called men whitewashed tombs, or when he said, you have made my father's house a den of thieves, I don't think that he had his voice low. I don't think he was whispering it. And part of the problem today, the reason that we're losing, is not because the opposition, the enemies of God, the enemies of Christ, it's not because they're smarter, it's not because they're right, it's because they're louder and they're more courageous. They are louder and more courageous for lies than most of the Christian community is for truth. If someone was being murdered right in front of you, I mean literally murdered in front of you, what would you do? Would you keep quiet? Would you try and maintain your composure? Would you scream bloody hell? Would you scream your lungs out? I think you would. So there is a response that is proportional to the deed. What would seem odd is if someone didn't scream. Right? That's what would be odd. There are responses to evil that are proportional to the deed. And we in the Christian community in America, whether it's the Catholic Church dealing with the pedophile scandal, the homosexual mafia, or evangelical churches dealing with child killing, homosexual marriage, whatever it is, we have failed to vigorously, passionately, courageously proclaim and defend the truth and to fight against evildoers with every weapon at our disposal. We have failed. That is why we're losing the soul of this country. It is not because of the end of the world or because it's the devil's world. That's all nonsense. It's because we have failed to be the salt of the earth. And Jesus said, if the salt has lost its savor, it is henceforth good for nothing except to be thrown into the street and trampled underfoot of men. And we and our most sacred principles are being trampled underfoot of men because we're the salt that's lost its savor. I'll be right back. Don't go away. What Would Mohammed Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Muhammad and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, I learned more from What Would Mohammed Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life. Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700 or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Friend, we have a series that will help you and those you love to have an impact on this country. It's called Insurrecta Nex. That's Latin for revolution against the killing of innocent people. This is the history, the philosophy, and the theology of social revolution in America. We look at the Stamp Act, the Boston Tea Party, the abolition of slavery, the abolition of child labor, women's voting rights, the civil rights movement. All of them have this in common: courage, sacrifice, dedication, and in-your-face tactics and rhetoric. That's one of the reasons that we've been losing the culture wars the last 40 years, is because the bad guys are using these tactics and we aren't. We will send you this 14-part TV series along with these manuals for students, a teacher's facilitator guide for only $40. Go to 304-289-3700, 304-289-3700. Have you ever heard of muscle memory? It's like when you play the piano or when you play the guitar, you have memory. Your muscles have memory. Courage is a muscle. Courage, it takes development. Silence takes development. I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said, when men are silent when they should be protesting, I'm butchering the phrase, but when men are silent when they should be protesting makes cowards of men. Lincoln connected silence with cowardice. When you think of John the Baptist confronting Herod, Herod, is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife while your brother yet lives. When we think of him doing that, we think, oh, he's a hero. But what we need to do is look at his example and then try and imitate it in the in the simplest ways that are before us. Courage is a muscle. If you learn to say that which is unpleasant and unpopular, but true, if you learn to do it in little things, Jesus said, I'll make you, if you're faithful in little things, you'll have charge over big things, okay? Silence is also learned. The repetitive nature of holding our tongues. And all of us have, I'm almost out of time, all of us have situations that we've gone through at work and in family situations. Just those two. Think of the times you've seen something wrong at work or in a family situation and you didn't say anything. Or at church, all right? Those muscles, or the lack of the use of muscle of courage and the development of the pattern of silence, is crippling us. Courage by contrast, is also like a muscle. You just have to work it. You have to say the truth when it is unpopular, when it should be said, when people need to hear it, when as a duty to God you have to say it. And if you'll work on that courage muscle, it'll get stronger and stronger, and then God can trust you and use you to say something at a moment of critical history like with John the Baptist. I've got to go. God bless you.